Dragons at bay. The Tampa Bay Bucs, Super Bowl 55.
Hello and welcome back to the Bucs Banter Podcast. This is our 75th episode all time, and it's one of my favorite episodes of the year because I'm going to unveil the first version of my mock draft for this year, 1.0. It's officially submitted, boys. It'll be published probably tomorrow, maybe Friday, over at bucsgameday.com, which of course is the only Sports Illustrated website dedicated specifically to covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So make sure you get all your written Buccaneers content there. And while you're here, please feel free to subscribe, turn on notifications, all that good stuff so you can support the YouTube channel. Helps us out a great deal, and we appreciate it. Scott, Bodan, I hope you're doing well. We want to be time efficient here. We have 31, not 32 picks to cover this evening. So shout out Tom Brady for Tampa in that Miami front office. I don't know, maybe
there you go.
Tribute
last gift he gave us, right? One less pick to talk about.
That's right. So no one else has seen this mock. I sent it to these guys just a couple minutes before we went live here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just pull out my little Google sheet so anyone watching on YouTube can actually see the picks that we're talking about. So let me just do that for a moment here, gentlemen. Boys, the draft's coming up, though. I got to say, I'm pretty excited about that.
I know. So good. Whenever we get a crop of quarterbacks coming in, I mean, we always do typically, but we still don't know what's going to happen at the top, which is so exciting. And, I do love the draft. I think it's a little bit crazy how much we cover it, but at the same token, like I absolutely eat up every bit of it. Literally, I'm on a podcast about it right now. So I can't wait to talk about some of these guys, and just as much as I can't wait to talk about them, I also just can't wait to see where they end up and see what teams are thinking. Like I like the prognostication and just like bullshitting going back and forth with mocks, but then actually on draft night, when you see it's like, oh shit, they reached for that guy, or they like that guy, or they prioritize this over that. I love that. I love that shit so much.
Hell yes. Yeah. So let's get into it, shall we? I'll go through the first few picks here, and then we'll take a breather, and you guys can throw any questions my way. You can call me out if there's anything you want to ask about any of these particular players. We'll go ahead and do that. So Panthers taking Bryce Young. I mean, if it were me, I'd be taking CJ Stroud, but it isn't me, and the prevailing thought is Bryce Young. Scott, on a previous episode a few weeks ago, about a month ago, we were saying how it was a great time to jump on Bryce Young because CJ Stroud was a favorite. I forget what it was. I don't know if you remember what the juice was on that.
I can't remember what it was, but I know it wasn't what it is now. Bryce Young is now up to minus 1,200. I'm looking on Bet365 right now. Absolutely massive favorite, which hasn't been hasn't been the case the whole time leading up. I mean, I saw Anthony Richardson, I think, get to like plus 175 at one point a few weeks ago. It's so funny watching these markets move just based on interviews or maybe even an Adam Schefter tweet or something like that. And not maybe, like 100% a Schefter tweet could move these lines, right? So, so, I mean, no harm in shaming. Bryce Young minus 1,200, and then Stroud is plus 800 to be the top pick right now.
So there you have it. And then at number 2, I got the Texans taking CJ Stroud. I want to be clear. I have CJ Stroud going second. I think if the Texans there's lots of rumblings that they are not into CJ Stroud. They're leaning towards just taking the best defensive player, whether likely Will Anderson, who knows. I think if that's going to happen, they'd be better off sliding down a few picks, maybe swapping spots with the Colts, and you're still going to get a tremendous difference maker on the defensive end, and you're going to get some draft capital as well. So I've left CJ Stroud there. I'm not projecting specific trades because I don't know. I think that's kind of dumb.
It's just impossible. It's just impossible.
No disrespect to anyone who does it. Like I appreciate it and respect it, but anyway.
And sorry, Carl, just for what it's worth, I'm looking at the number 2 overall odds as well here. Bo, I don't know if you saw this. Will Anderson at plus 200 is technically the favorite right now, with Stroud and Levis both at plus 250.
The Levis one is interesting.
Right? Levis is very interesting.
Right? And it's obviously interesting because the odds might not necessarily correspond with, you didn't go to 2, then you'll have the highest odds at 3. It's team dependent, right? So we can talk about that a little bit more, but obviously they're giving real, like the books are giving real credence to the fact that Levis could be the guy for the Texans, or if they know someone's going to move up to number 2, right? So that shocked me today. I was going through the odds, hadn't looked at these sorts of things in the last week or so, like the number 2, 3, and 4 overall pick, and Levis up to plus 250 was, caught me.
Yeah. And the for me, obviously, with this particular mock, if the Texans do stick there and take Will Anderson, it's going to screw a lot of this up, but that's part of the fun of it. So for now, I'm standing pat. Like I got time. I might throw it a 2.0 on a week from now on Wednesday, right? Just to take some of those freebies when some of the word starts to come out. So
I just love looking at the odds, because that is basically your most up-to-date way to see what's going on, honestly. And it is.
Yeah. It totally is. You're right.
Yeah.
So then I got Will Anderson going to the Cardinals. Like I said, first defensive player off the board. The Cardinals have so many holes. I mean, you might as well start at the edge rusher position.
Mm-hmm.
That team is in a rough spot, man. Like, holy.
Oh, yeah.
God. And then the Colts need a quarterback, and Anthony Richardson, a tantalizing talent, all the tools in the world, literally and figuratively, the most physically gifted athlete who has ever declared for the draft as a quarterback, based on all of the athletic testing and all the numbers. So incredibly high ceiling. I mean, Chris Ballard, the way he operates, a lot of people think Will Levis. I mean, if CJ Stroud's there, I think those are guys fit more of his MO and his criteria generally, at least based on his draft history. But we shall see. And Jalen Carter, 5 to the Seahawks. I mean,
okay.
He's the talk of the town, of course, based on all the off the field stuff. And does he really want it? Yada, yada, yada. I feel like with Pete Carroll, I feel like he has the ultimate faith in himself to, if there's any character concerns or whatever it may be, like, I feel like he thinks that he can get through to that guy, and he's a player's coach. And I think it's tough to ignore just how dominant and disruptive of a player Jalen Carter is, and how good he could be right away. So the other thing I want to say in terms of Jalen Carter is I would keep an eye on the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm not the first one to connect the dots, but loaded with two first-round picks, and they really want an interior defensive lineman, having lost Javon Hargrave to the Niners. Jalen Carter, I think, could be a target to them. If he slips to 10, then they've hit a gold mine, because there's no way the Eagles would not take Jalen Carter if he's there for them at 10.
Oh, yeah.
So that's right up to the top 5, gentlemen.
Okay.
What a crazy
bro, where do you want
change.
To start? Yeah.
Like, just like the big picture for me is like from last year, top 5 is all defensive players, right? And at least this is the more traditional draft, but like, even if you look at it, we still got a lot of defensive players going in the first 8 players here. So it's interesting that way. I think it does. Like, when I look at the top 5, I think those top 4 picks are basically safe to me. I think Will Anderson might be the best player in this draft. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the way that it's all shakes out, the way that we actually remember this night. We're like, oh, how'd that guy go 3? This is Myles Garrett 2.0 or whatever, 1.5, whatever you want to say. But the Seahawks taking Jalen Carter is such a big gamble to me. And it's just so interesting, because I think they do need some help up front. But how, like, with the roster that they have, are they going to be picking, I guess, unless they get more Broncos picks in the chest, right? But are they going to be picking up here ever again? It's like, do they take a big swing? Is this the team that the Texans are trying to trade with? That's the Seahawks are just the most interesting team to me on next Thursday night.
It's tough to get a read for where they're at, no question, because what you're suggesting makes perfect sense. They're this high right now, like 5th overall pick. Geno Smith isn't going to be around for the next 8 years, and the rest of their roster is clearly, aside from, you got Lockett and some guys there, but they're trying to kind of remold things and build for the future at the same time of being competitive. So what you're saying makes perfect sense, Bo. How fun would Anthony Richardson be if he was a Seahawk?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no Seahawks fan that's not cheering for that right now. They're just where they just really like the biggest gamble and just like the highest ceiling possible.
The other thing is, they could clearly be a player for Hendon Hooker. I mean, he, you know, aside from like the body type or whatever, like there's some similarities there to Geno Smith. I feel like he's capable of running like a similar offense if that's something they're stuck on.
Well, I think Hooker is actually slightly older than Geno Smith. He's actually into early retirement. No, he is old though. He is old as fuck.
Who doesn't love an old hooker? Pete Carroll does.
Oh man, hey, maybe I could see him down in Tijuana, perhaps. Anyway,
I don't want to throw any spoilers out, but we'll get to the Hendon Hooker takes for sure.
Right. Okay, so a couple things. I mean, I don't know about Bryce Young over CJ Stroud. I have them pretty similar, to be completely honest. I think it's totally fair, and obviously based on the books and everything. Call, I think you're 100% right. That's what's going to happen. The Panthers did a good job kind of holding off, I feel like, on tipping their hand as to what they were going to do until relatively recently. So Bryce Young there sounds good. I'm wondering if the Cardinals are a prime trade candidate. Maybe someone gets a little antsy and they move up to possibly get a quarterback, right? So I think, hey, if they had the third pick, you know, they're not taking a quarterback. Obviously, Will Anderson, yes, that makes more than enough sense. And maybe this is just a blind spot for me, but have they been targeted as a main, potential trade chip or trade team?
The Cardinals?
Yeah.
No, everyone's talking about the Texans, but I think you bring up a great point because they're the team that unequivocally doesn't need a quarterback.
Exactly. So
in that top four, so it makes a lot of sense what you're saying.
Yeah, so I could see someone getting antsy, or I don't know exactly what goes on. Depends with Levis and Richardson, but if they have one of those guys, let's say considerably, graded considerably higher. I don't know, let's say you're Seattle, for example, and you're thinking about your quarterback situation and how long you have Geno. Do you make the big trade to move up a couple spots and get your guy if you love Richardson, for example? I don't know. Just thinking out loud here as I see the mock unveiled, and wheels are turning.
Just one more thing on that, like the Geno angle of all of this is interesting, especially because he signed that big extension this summer already. But if you really look at that, I was looking at that contract. It's really just 1 year. It's 1 year, $27 million, and they can get out of it after that.
Yeah.
So if they I think if you're looking for a team that's going to maybe make a gamble on a quarterback and try to jump over the Colts, I think that's the team, right? Like if we're going to see 3 QBs go in a row, I think it's because the Seahawks made a move.
Nice. Interesting. Okay, let's keep chugging along down here. Lions and Raiders, I'm going to group them together because I think these are where the 2 cornerbacks are going to go off the board first.
Yeah.
There is a clear tier 1 of the cornerback position, and that is Christian Gonzalez and Devin Witherspoon. I have the Lions taking Witherspoon here just because he's such a Dan Campbell dude. Ultimately, you couldn't Christian Gonzalez is kind of like the finesse. Like he's that AJ Terrell mold, like smooth mover, like just super textbook, refined technique, tremendous athlete. Like he is a clean AF prospect. Devin Witherspoon's kind of that nasty dog on the outside who's going to be a tone setter for your entire secondary. He loves to support the run and lay the lumber, and he's just he's a dog, right? So which one's
fun to watch? He's so fun to watch when he's not playing against your team.
Totally.
Having watched him, I think I said this on the previous episode because it has been this way for a while, right? These 2 guys were their own tier from the cornerback position, right? So I had just seen more of Witherspoon than Gonzalez at Illinois versus Oregon, right? And I absolutely loved what I saw. I think, boom, that makes a ton of sense. Just more of a Campbell guy. And I hate to say shit like that, because it's whatever. But no, I could see it coming down to that, right? If they are looking at cornerback in that spot, so I love it. I love those 2 going in the top 7 there.
And if he's a Campbell guy, but if he's a Campbell guy, he's a Brad Holmes guy because Brad Holmes obviously hired Dan Campbell for a reason, right? So he appreciates that same mindset. So sorry, Bohead.
Yeah, I think both of these fan bases would be super happy with this. Like the Christian, I was talking to a Raiders fan today, and they're like Christian Gonzalez. If he's there, I'll be happy with that. So I think those 2 picks are really good to me.
Yeah. Love that. Tyree Wilson. I mean, I believe I've looked at a lot of mock drafts, obviously, so like I don't know who's, but I believe Lance Zierlein for NFL.com is one of the best in the business, and he's very much plugged in. He lives in Houston with the Texans. I think he had the Texans taking Tyree Wilson at 2, so that's really interesting. He's the traits guy. He's the bendy freak athlete, super long, kind of like last year's Trayvon Walker. Not the same style. Tyree Wilson's a little different, but like just in terms of those traits speaking louder than anything else. But Tyree Wilson was more productive than Trayvon Walker. Obviously, he's playing for Texas Tech, different situation. But there's no doubt that a lot of GMs are going to be enamored with him. And for the Falcons to get him at 8, this is an interesting one because the Falcons have done a lot of work through free agency addressing their D-line. And you might think, oh, well, then maybe they're going to move somewhere else, different position, whatever. Apparently, they're fond of Ritter. Otherwise, would they not be like going for Lamar Jackson, as we've discussed offline? And if they didn't believe in Ritter, then I would be all about going for Anthony Richardson if he were here. But in this scenario, I have them taking Tyree Wilson, who could end up being the best edge in this class, even though Will Anderson is clearly, in most people's eyes, the number 1 edge. But you know, NFL scouts, GMs, they really focus on those traits and how transferable they are.
Man, I think they could. I think this is a prime team to possibly move up and try to snag one of these quarterbacks. I do, and I totally agree. I'm with you, Colin. I think they like Ritter, but would they get him in the 3rd round? It's not like this unbelievable sunk cost if you find a guy in the next draft that you like much better, right? So I'm just no idea, just kind of what I'm thinking when it comes to the Falcons. I could be completely wrong.
I like, if I was that GM, I'd be like, am I willing to get fired over this? Because if I trade picks to move up and we're shit again next year, I'm screwed. You're like, it's your job. You're like, there's no coming back from that, right?
You'd have to be
like, imagine trading up for Zach Wilson. That's the question. That's like, imagine if you were the GM that was like, I'm in love with Zach Wilson. I'm trading up for him. He's
that guy would have been wrong. But we don't know this yet. We know that guy's wrong. We don't know this. Yeah. I'm just saying, I think they're, as much as my whole point is, as much as they like Ritter, and I like Ritter, they didn't get him with the 9th pick last year, and you feel like you have to kind of ride it out for at least 2 years, is all I'm saying. That's just kind of where my head's at.
Yeah. They need a mobile quarterback for sure. Obviously Ritter's mobile. But man, like, I just can't. The Lamar thing or the Anthony Richardson thing, like, those guys would just be so perfect for Arthur Smith and Arthur Blank, the Arthurs in Atlanta.
Yeah.
The Bears. I got them taking most people's top left tackle, probably the number 1 left tackle in the draft, Paris Johnson Jr. He's not a transcendent tackle. Like, I don't think this tackle class compares to the Wirfs, Jedrick Wills, Andrew Thomas here by any means.
It feels like we always get a left tackle that comes in that's just unbelievable, though, right? It's funny. It's funny when, obviously he's really good, but he's not this surefire Hall of Famer or sometimes that we get. I just noticed that when I was kind of reading through and looking at the tackles and comparing it to past drafts.
For sure. And the interesting thing about this tackle class is that some of them project potentially to be, they're pretty versatile. Paris Johnson is a true left tackle.
Yeah,
but we'll talk a little bit more about some of the others and their versatility. The Bears need help on the O-line. It's a no-brainer. They've added some weapons. They've given Fields some receivers, obviously, with the players they've acquired there, Claypool, and they got DJ Moore. So they got Kmet at tight end. They still got Mooney. So So anyway, they got to address the O-line, get the best tackle on the board. Bingo, bango. Here I have the Eagles taking.
They're still gonna suck, I think. But anyway,
they're not there yet. That's for sure. But if you want, like, if Field is going to discover his potential as a passer, the potential I believe he has as a well-rounded quarterback, not just a strict runner, you got to keep him upright and you got to have weapons. So they're trying to do that. Ryan,
agreed.
Polk, is what it is. It's going to take some time. I got Bijan going to the Eagles. Obviously, this is a shot. Yeah, but I think, again, if the Eagles can, they're going to package their picks and try and find a way to get Jalen Carter. I truly do. I think it makes too much sense.
For me, this is like the CJ Stroud thing where it's like, okay, this guy should go 2 and this guy should go 10.
Yeah.
It might not be the Eagles does it, but
Yeah.
I like you look at the tape. This kid is ridiculously.
He's
good.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
He's unbelievable.
Yeah, Bijan is incredible. He's
Fucking-
going to be an all pro caliber running back right away, right? He's a
snap one.
And you know, they got Rashad Penny on a cheap ass deal. Like, you need multiple backs. And I just think this is a pure luxury pick. The Eagles, coming off a Super Bowl run, have 2 first round picks. So who is in a better position to kind of ignore the draft capital and just take this transcendent running back talent who would actually help their team fit a bit of a need? I mean, by God, how him with Hurts and that O-line and that passing game, it's unbelievable. Like, so I just think
I'm listening to that New Heights podcast a little bit every once in a while. And I've heard them talk about Howie Roseman's philosophy. It doesn't seem like they'd be shocked if it's Bijan Robinson. Apparently, Kelsey saw him in the facility and was like, "Holy shit, this kid is a big deal." So
My thoughts on a first round running back have been, well documented on here, but he's that good. And especially with the 2 picks in the first round, I think you could take a swing to possibly have top 6 starting running back in the league next year. If that's what he's that good. He is that good. And the running back class is pretty good. And he's still head and shoulders above the rest of them. Right. So, I'm loving just the thought of him with Hurts back there. Like, holy shit. Imagine someone not named Miles Sanders. And as much as I like the Penny pickup, obviously he's had some injury problems in his career so far. So, I mean, hey, it's exciting. That would be super exciting to see.
No doubt about it. Okay, Titans. I initially had them taking Skoronski, the offensive lineman from Northwestern, but here I haven't taken Will Levis. I mean, they need a quarterback. The Titans, I hate to say it, Bo, as a closet Tennessee fan, I accuse you of being, but they're almost like, aside from having a few guys like dudes, obviously like Simmons and Derrick Henry, I mean, this team feels like a bit of a disaster, and I feel like they have a shit ton of holes on the roster, and I feel like their trajectory is headed downward. And maybe you get out in front of it, and if you're a Will Levis guy, I mean, he has a lot of similarities as a big dual threat quarterback to Ryan Tannehill, but he's a lot better of a passer and a better quarterback prospect overall. Will Levis, there's reasons why I don't blame you if you don't view him as a legit, starting quarterback in the NFL. But there's also plenty of reasons why I understand if you do.
So what's your ultimate kind of prediction for him? Because I have no feel for him. I cannot square the fact that he played in a prehistoric offense with not a ton of talent, got beat out at Penn State, but obviously has some tools. Played at a big school in a big conference, but like a second tier school in that conference. Like, I don't know. I have no idea.
I mean, I certainly don't have him above any of the quarterbacks we've already mentioned. And this would be too rich for my blood personally for Will Levis.
Okay.
What a sad quarterback room. Like Will Levis, Malik Willis, and Ryan Tannehill. Is there anything sadder in the game? Like that offense, speaking of prehistoric offenses, like he'd fit right in. He literally would fit right in with the Titans offense right now. So
it just makes exactly.
I'm not high on him at all, as you guys can tell. I don't like. If this pick across, like I get it, but like I don't get it at the same time. I'd be like, what are you guys doing? Are you trying to get the worst? Like, will you just not make a good pick until you have a top 5 pick?
Right, and in that case, maybe you use that on the quarterback. So maybe they don't do this. This is a tough one to read, man. They could go a bunch of different directions. But as it stands, that's what I have them doing. Here I have the Texans with the 12th pick taking Nolan Smith. Big fan of Nolan Smith personally. He's not the biggest dude. He was hurt a fair bit. He missed a bunch of this past season with a pec, but just a phenomenal athlete and a really good leader. And here I was toying with him or Lucas Van Ness, the Iowa kid. But because I see there being a bit of a gap between the next edge rusher getting drafted based on team needs, if it works out that way. I have Nolan Smith going here. More, you could flip a coin. A lot of people would have Lucas Van Ness here, assuming they're going in that direction, that edge rusher position. I went with the guy I like more. It's pretty much that simple.
He really bulked up since his days at Duke, eh? Playing on the edge. That's what a resurgence. No, but yeah, hey, he's unreal. This is not great analysis. Hey, take someone on the Georgia defense, right? Honestly, their two deep was probably as talented as an all-star team from the rest of the country. So I like it. I like that a lot.
Scotty, he was the number 1 overall prospect when he signed with Georgia too.
Yeah, 3 or 4 years ago, right? Okay,
yeah. So, and he was the leader of that team, man. If you saw how his teammates were all celebrating when he ran an awesome 40 time coming off the injury, I just like him, and I'll be rooting for him.
Oh, that was awesome. Yeah, that was a great clip. Yep.
Yeah. 13 Jets. I got them going O-line. I mean, there's some uncertainty there in terms of what's happening with their O-line. Mekhi Becton coming back off missing what feels like a couple years. I feel like he hasn't even really. So Skoronski here is probably the best overall offensive lineman in the draft in terms of like the surest thing. He has 32.5-inch arms, and I know that doesn't seem like a lot, but if you're a tackle prospect, it does mean a lot. And the historical comps for example, Pro Bowl O-lineman with 32.5-inch arms. I heard, I forget, I think it was maybe Dane Brugler talking about this. It was on, I think it was the Athletic football show with Brandon Thorne. They went through it, but there's been like 12 players in the history of the league to make a Pro Bowl with 32.5-inch arms or shorter along the offensive line, and every single one of them was a guard. So, in other words, no Pro Bowl tackles have ever had arms that short. So it does matter when you're on that side.
It matters, yeah,
especially if you're a tackle. So we'll see what happens with Skoronski. He could it'll depend where he goes. Teams may draft him to be a tackle, and he'll sure as hell hold his own probably because he's just such a technician. Like, he's just so fundamentally sound, and he understands. He's tricky and all that. But very likely he could be moved into guard, and then all of a sudden, the Jets, they need to keep Aaron Rodgers upright or whatever the hell happens there. So that's an area where they could use an addition. The Patriots, unconventional, I know, but I have them taking who I think is the best receiver in this draft in Jackson Smith and Jigba. They like, how can you possibly evaluate your quarterbacks fair? Like, you don't have Tom Brady there anymore. So Mac Jones or Bailey Zappi aren't just going to automatically elevate whoever the hell you throw out wide into being fringe Pro Bowl guys or like sleeper Super Bowl MVP candidates. It's just not going to happen. You have to give Mac Jones something to work with. And I'm not a Mac Jones guy and never have been. But
no,
like, come on, how are you going to give him a fair evaluation with what you're running out there at the skill positions? I think this is a great opportunity for you to get who I think is the best receiver in the draft. I mean, we all know
he's unbelievable.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So, and he's a Belichick kind of receiver. Like, you know what I mean? Super shifty, super versatile. I mean, yeah. So that's what I have there, and I'm sticking with it for now.
It's funny because, like, for his sake, I hope he doesn't go to the Patriots because they've been so useless with receivers for so long. But then it's like, I hate him, so I hope he does go there. So a real two sides of the same coin, or however that goes, situation for me. But yeah, 14 seems about right, honestly, or in that range call. So yeah.
And then this is a tough one, man. The Packers are always hard to project. Wouldn't it be hilarious if they waited till Aaron Rodgers left before they invest a first round pick in like who you could argue is a skill position player, like Dalton Kincaid, the tight end here, says Notre Dame. He did not go to Notre Dame, folks. He went to Utah. Guess it's obvious. I had Michael Meyer there earlier. But Kincaid is, and listen closely, he's of that Kelsey mold in terms of like an elite pass catcher. He's got the size. He can block enough. But he would be there to catch balls and catch touchdowns. And I think he's going to be really, really good. And that would be a really nice security blanket for Jordan Love to have, making the transition from, career backup to full-time starter.
I agree.
It would just be savage to do that, to get a pass catcher as soon as Rodgers leaves because he hated it.
Well, yeah.
Joey Porter Jr., or let me skip down a few here. We'll go down to, or we'll stop. We'll stop at the Bucs one.
Yeah.
Because we'll spend some time there. Joey Porter Jr., man, awesome corner. Like,
Wow.
Witherspoon and Christian Gonzalez, if they're the top tier, you could almost put Joey Porter
He's
Jr. and
right
maybe Deontay Banks just right below them, like you know. And Washington's tough too. They could go a number of directions. They could also totally use a tight end, even though it's not listed on the positional needs page here. If you can see that. But I haven't taken a corner because they need a corner, and they're getting a good one here at 16. I mean, that seems like good value to me. It just kind of made sense. Now, Darnell Wright, I have him going to the Steelers here at 17. Let me tell you, I would love for him to slide 2 more picks. Big Darnell Wright guy, and he is himself is a big guy.
Yeah.
He's freaking awesome. He's in that Trent Williams mold. Obviously, you can't call him Trent Williams, but he's like such a big, strong lad that it's just wild. Brandon Thorne was talking about how when he met Trey Smith, who's the massive guard for the Chiefs coming out of Tennessee 2 years ago. He saw him with Darnell Wright, and like Trey Smith is massive, and he said he just paled in comparison to Darnell Wright. He couldn't believe how big this dude was, like thick. And he can move too, man. He surprised some people with some of his athleticism, potentially better suited to a right tackle if you ask the trench goat, Brandon Thorne. But he wants to be a left tackle, and I think he's got all the tools to do it. He's continually getting better and high ceiling for an O-lineman, high ceiling, similar to a Mekhi Becton that year, a few years ago. And I'm a bit of a sucker for the high ceiling with the tackles.
Well, it makes sense to the Steelers, obviously, with the young quarterback. Tough season. They obviously kind of righted the ship towards the end there. But yeah, I mean, if he's that good, I mean, I'm sorry, I just keep thinking about him with the Bucs. To be completely honest, I'm seeing Steelers beside his name, but I'm picturing him on that Bucs O line and thinking about what they need. And oh my God, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah, he just to elaborate on him a little bit, he didn't give up 1 sack this year, and he's pleased in the SEC. He shut down Will Anderson. Like, he dominated Will Anderson. He dominated BJ Ojulari at LSU. Like, this guy, he's played against real competition, man. So big fan of him. Kalijah Cansey, this is the Aaron Donald 2.0 that people like to claim. Very similar in terms of being an undersized guy height-wise, but a freak athlete. He does meet those two requirements to be considered Aaron Donald. He's just missing the like first ballot Hall of Famer credentials.
Right, just that, yeah.
But I mean, it feels like the Lions have done such a good job addressing so many of their needs in such a quick period of time. I mean, you got to give it up for Brad Holmes for what he's done there. And this is kind of like another, I think, high ceiling pick. Like, it's a bit of a gamble, but they're in that position. They got a lot of good resources, especially like on the defensive side of the ball right now. So if this guy pops and ends up being like truly unique and productive, then there you go. You got a real winner pairing him with Aiden Hutchinson and some of the other pieces they've drafted there on the defensive side.
Yeah, defense still needs some shoring up, right, for the Lions. And hey, if this happened, like if it was him and Witherspoon as you have here, Collin, like that's a nice 1-2 punch, shot in the arm, could potentially play right away, right? So we'll see. Yeah.
Now they also desperately need a tight end, if you ask me. And this is the draft to need a tight end. And there's some really good tight ends. There's like 7 legit NFL.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I'd like to see them do that at 18. That'd be a pretty cool pick.
It would, man. It would. Yeah. Like, get a little Michael Mayer, best tight end in the country.
Yeah, that would be more the Mayer area than, right, if Kincaid goes earlier. Yeah,
for sure. And that
Kincaid is unreal, by the way. Sorry, just the games I saw him at Utah. Holy shit, like just awesome. Yeah. So fun to watch.
See, like it's like that's what I mean about the Kelsey mold thing. He kind of moves like Kelsey. He's just too nimble for a guy that tall, like a big white guy who can move like that. It's pretty, it's pretty unique. It's pretty freaking unique. It's not like Michael Mayer where it's like Gronk-esque, you know?
No,
totally different style of tight end.
Yeah, it's basically him, Kelsey, and you in 2006, right? So those are the big 3.
Exactly. 19 Buccaneers. I have Broderick Jones of Georgia, offensive tackle. He's just kind of like He's like the equivalent of these like D linemen out of Georgia, except he's on the offensive side of the ball. Like he's just rock solid, plug and play pro. And I know I mentioned Darnell Wright having the highest ceiling of these offensive tackles, but Broderick Jones may just be scratching the surface of his potential. And to get him here, most people have him as the second best OT prospect, offensive tackle prospect. I got him falling to 19 here. I think it would be a really good value for the Buccaneers. It clearly fits a need. I will say there's a little lack of clarity regarding how things are going to unfold positionally along this Buccaneers offensive line. It feels kind of like Jason Light's just trying to like get all these guys who have some versatility and then figure it out later. Don't love that part of it. But obviously he values versatility. Guys like Hainsey, Gadecki's already moved around, Nick Leverett. I mean, you got Jensen plugged in the middle, and then you got Wirfs bookending one side.
Either one.
Yeah.
It looks like, yeah.
Either one. So, we'll see what happens. But I think if Broderick Jones is there, I think you got to pull the trigger. And I think that's fantastic value here in the bottom half of this first round.
I can't see them going any other way than OT. I feel like they're going to take the best offensive lineman prospect that they can find on the board at 19 if they stay at 19. How long did it take for you to come to this?
Man, I've had so many different names here.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Can you give us a few of the others?
Yeah, and how do you feel?
I would be ecstatic if they got Broderick Jones.
Okay.
I'll tell you one thing. I'll be ecstatic. Like, Jason Light is very good at identifying offensive line talent. Gadecki not hitting right away. I'm not even willing to like call that a flop yet.
A bad year.
Yeah, like it could have been. Like he could have been out of position, right? He was a tackle in college. First game, he's starting at left guard. Like soon as in that Dallas game, he played right tackle and he had his best game of the year. That's where he played in college. Yeah. So, but again, that falls back into what I'm saying about sort of this lack of clarity in terms of the positions that everyone plays. So it's nice to have versatility, but also it's only fair to give some guys a clear defined role so that they can get better in that role instead of trying to have them learn everything like Hainsey and all these guys. But I'd be ecstatic to have like a legit plug and play tackle prospect, like a top 4 tackle, top 3 tackle. Okay. Like I'd be ecstatic. But like edge rusher is absolutely an option. You got
that's what I'm thinking.
So you look right below, you see Lucas Van Ness. I mean, this guy's a freak from Iowa, and he could easily be going early. He could be going 8 to the Falcons instead of Nolan Smith could be in this situation. I mean, you got Miles Murphy from Clemson, who can even kick inside or rush off the edge. He's one of those bigger bodied edge rushers. And I feel like the Bucs between Tryon Shoyinka and Shaq Barrett already have a little more speed-based edge rushers. Yeah. So maybe they want a body in there. I don't know. They got a body last year in Logan Hall. Didn't hit right away, but I'm sure their expectations for him haven't wavered. But it's got to be trenches, I think. The only exception could be Brian Branch out of Alabama. He's listed as a safety, but he's the best slot nickel corner in this draft.
Oh, okay.
And that's where there's a vacancy with Sean Murphy Bunting leaving. And the Bucs would have a nasty secondary if they got an immediate like step in. Like he's really the only guy you could trust to come in and play the nickel at the NFL level right away. He's just kind of like a hands clean, like this kid will be able to play in the nickel, but I just don't see that need as much. It's got
to be O-line or on the edge for me.
Yeah.
And
I think from the tackle position specifically, it falls off a pretty steep cliff after these top tier guys. Like maybe Anton Harrison out of Oklahoma could be in the mix, but I'm saying if you risk it to the 50th pick, which is where they pick in the second round, you're really playing with fire. Whereas you can get a BJ Ojulari potentially or Derek Hall from Auburn. Like these are really talented, proven edge rushers that you can get later. So I just think positionally, the depth of those respective positions, I think this would be the play if you got one of these top 4 linemen here. And I'd be really happy with Broderick Jones, that's for sure.
Yeah, that was my next question, was which, like, in this draft, what's the deeper position, like O lineman or an edge rush, or any help in the trenches if it's going to be offense or defense.
Yeah. It just feels like it's more spread out for the edge rusher position. Like it's more
Yeah.
scattered, like I don't even know if I want to call it way deeper, but I don't know. Like, so
Hey,
interesting.
This I think it'd be pretty telling what they think about Tryon Shoyinka's kind of progression based on what they do with this pick. I think,
true.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think
not
the offensive line.
Not necessarily.
No, but I mean, it's depth too. But I think if they were, I think it would tip their hand a little bit if they were a little bit concerned with what JTS has done. Just throwing it out there. I mean, I think the offensive line is the bigger need anyway.
I kind of agree with Collin there, where it's like you got Shaq Barrett come back off an Achilles, so
true.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, true. That's true.
So now I've completely, you asked me what I want here. There's one more scenario. I would be, if they believe like a stud tight end is here, like Kincaid, Meyer, maybe even Musgrave, or maybe Darnell Washington. Like if they're in love with one, fuck it. Like,
do it.
I would do it. I would rather the tackle, but if you got one of those guys and you believe he's special, like if Kincaid slipped 5 picks from where I have him going here and was available, I mean,
that's not out of this world either. Like a tight end going at 15 is pretty high. Any tight end not named Kyle Pitts, right? Like,
right. But the depth of that position again would
way deeper.
Sort of say just chill, get that later, because I already mentioned why getting one of these top tier tackles here, you could get a really good tight end at 50 still potentially.
That's just it, right? Yeah. That's where you have to kind of discern, figure out what your appetite is for it, and when you're willing to go for it. So weird that the position that's like this is tight end though.
Yeah,
I feel like we don't usually get to talk. It's like, okay, you either want to be the first, or you want at a certain position, or you want to wait. And this is just, I don't know. I love those guys, but you might be able to find a pretty good one late second round too. So that's interesting.
Absolutely.
And also like it speaks to their shitty tight end situation now anyway.
Yeah,
and how disappointed those guys have been.
Well, I think the NFL in general, the tight end has been a huge disappointment. If you play fantasy football and you don't own Kelsey or Mark Andrews, not even this past year he struggled, but like a couple guys, you're fucked.
You shouldn't even draft one. You should just be floating it, because like the production is so hard to predict, or non-linear, however you want to say it.
Yeah, it is. So it's but it's kind of like, feels like this might be one of those drafts that kind of replenishes the position league wide, and we get some more factors at that position.
Before we move on,
it
depends who's on the board, right? But gut feeling, you hear that the Bucs have made a trade at pick 18
mama,
or
I was
something
just about to ask this.
I hope it's going down. I hope
it's going down. Okay. That's what I was wondering. Is if there's anything that would get you excited to move up.
Shit, like I don't know, maybe if they got word of like, not really, man. I would way rather be going down. Going down, because I think one of these top 4 tackles will be here personally, and I like that. But if they're in love and if they move up a few picks to take Darnell Wright, I mean, they moved up one pick last time to get Tristan Wirfs a couple years ago, then I'll be excited, But I hate that you have then given up draft capital in order to do it, when I believe you're going to get a top 4 tackle at that spot. Whereas if you move down, you're acquiring additional draft capital, and you still have a bunch of holes and shots you could take to better the roster for the long term. And let's not kid ourselves. The Bucs should be competitive this year, but they've still got to be building for the future based on how cash-strapped they've been, and things will be looking up next year. So I would prefer it to be a trade down. But I get excited about some guys, no doubt, man. Come on now.
Of course.
For sure. So we'll move off the Bucs, but that's where I got Broderick Jones sliding to them, the Georgia tackle. I think most people are wanting a tackle in Tampa, and I think he'd be a damn good one to add. Let's just scoot right down here, and we'll do bigger chunks now. From 20 to 27, Lucas Van Ness out of Iowa. He's a really interesting prospect just because his production was relatively limited, or his playing time was limited, but Iowa had such a great defense, and he was still highly productive in the snaps he got, and he's an athletic freak. And
Yeah.
I think he's good, man.
Yeah.
He could be really good.
He
though.
seems like
yeah.
He feels like he could be like a defensive rookie of the year type guy if he's in the right spot and just volume and numbers kind of thing. I don't know. We'll see when the odds come out, but I'm just thinking he's got it all, man. And if obviously it depends on where he lands, like it does for all of these guys, but just a little nugget there. I think
kick inside. I think he could kick inside too.
He can do it a little bit. Yeah, for sure. Totally. He's got a crazy speed strength combination, like
dude.
This could easily, if he were, this is a slide. Let me be clear.
Yeah. Oh, it's a huge slide for him. Yeah. He'd easily go 8. Like
this is a slide
in the top 10. Yeah.
Totally. So yeah, that'd be a hell of a pickup for the Seahawks. Like shit. And then you got Miles Murphy, Chargers again. Excuse me. I wanted a tight end to go here. I think Kincaid would be perfect here too. Of course, I keep referencing him being the perfect one, but the Chargers dealing with Kelsey so much to have their own to throw into that offense, like give him a weapon would be nice. But they also like their D line is so dependent on Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa, both of whom have so much trouble staying on the field right now, that I think throwing another big body in there with some of that interior flexibility as well, similar to Van Ness, but even more so because he's such a big body, and Miles Murphy would be a really nice rotational piece to add to help that defense get to the next level. And again, they could find a tight end later, and they still have some other needs also. Who knows what happens with Eckler, right? Like they could have an opening at the running back position. I know you love your boy Gerald Everett, Bo. I just think they need to get some young blood in there at the tight end spot as well. I mean, shit, we're talking about how many good tight ends are and how the league sucks. Yeah, so a lot of teams need a tight end, right?
Fair.
True.
Yeah. So I think a bunch could. I got the Ravens going corner here. This could easily be your wide receiver, especially with only one off the board so far.
Yeah.
But Deontay Banks, Maryland, he's nice. And this is a good spot for him to go. He's big. He's athletic. Like he's right there, if you ask me, with Joey Porter Jr. in that second tier of corners. His tape's really nice. He's big. He's aggressive. He's just a Raven, man. I can just see it. And he's from Baltimore too, actually.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
I didn't know
that. Yeah. Hendon Hooker. I didn't have this being Hendon Hooker until late. This is one of my latest additions. I just feel like at some point you got to just kind of listen to the noise, and it sounds like Hendon Hooker is going to be a first round pick. So I more or less found a place to slide him in. If I'm being completely transparent with you, like that's how I went about it. So
that makes sense. Him and Kirk can talk about the Great War together. Like just pick one. No, but seriously, like he's going to be a first round pick based on everything that I've seen. Teams love him. They're not too scared off by his age. I think this is one of those cases where they're just thinking it means he's more like a plug and play than, oh no, we're only getting, 10 years as opposed to 14 or whatever insane thing that teams try to think about for the entire future. But I think that makes a ton of sense for the Vikings actually.
Isn't he coming off an ACL too?
Yeah, the bad injury kind of fucked their whole season, which was too bad because they had a magical year.
I don't know. I feel like I can't talk myself into Hendon Hooker in the first round. I get there's some noise around it, but I just don't see it for some reason. I think it's because I got burned with Malik Willis last year. I can just feel like Hendon Hooker's gonna keep sliding, but
he put up prolific numbers, Hendon Hooker.
Yeah.
I mean, really prolific numbers. He had very good receivers, but he's playing in the SEC. But then I've seen like advanced guys be like, dude, he can only make a read to the right side of the field. Like there's lots of like big concerns too from some people. The draft community is very divided on Hooker. I'm more like I prefaced this pick with saying that I'm more trusting the noise that I've been hearing of late, in terms of him being in favor of some of these actual decision makers. Scotty, I know you got to dip out pretty soon, so
soon.
Just give us the word, and we'll say goodbye, and me and Bo will finish this sucker out.
I will. Okay, I want to do this. I want to do this next one. I want to do the Jags pick, and then I'm gone.
Alrighty. So Jaguars. I mean, they lost Juwan Taylor. He signed with the Chiefs. as a replacement over there. So they need a tackle. And this is like the next guy, the last of the tackles who I think is you got to get him in the first round if you want one. And Anton Harrison, he's only 21, like on the younger end of 21. He's a really good player. You know, one of those plug and play tackles. He's got the size, knows what he's doing, tons of experience for being so young. And I think, you know, your prime objective, if you're the Jacksonville Jaguars, is preserving the health and well-being of none other than Trevor Lawrence. So how do you do that? You go ahead and you draft yourself a legitimate starting tackle in the NFL. He has flexibility. He's played right and left tackle.
Cool. I have nothing to add. I'm glad I stayed.
Okay, I was gonna say I was like, man,
I was like clearing out. I was like, Scott has a big Anton Harrison take. This is gonna be amazing.
As soon as I saw it, I knew I was gonna say that. I thought it was a pretty good one. But no, I honestly don't know much about him. Last thing I'll say, love Zay Flowers. Can't wait to hear what you have to say about him. I think he's gonna be really good and a steal for whoever gets him at the back end. All right, later, boys.
See you, Scotty.
Hey, Scott.
All right, Bo, we'll zip through these here, pal.
Yeah.
Zay Flowers.
Yeah. Zay Flowers. Well, like, the one thing that I'll give to him is like Steve Smith is in love with this kid.
Because he is Steve Smith. Because he is Steve Smith.
Yeah, exactly. And like I didn't see 1 ounce of tape on him, right? And then I listened to Steve Smith talk about it, and I'm just like, oh man, this guy must be really good. And I watched the tape, and I'm like, it is him. It's exactly him.
Yeah, he's 5'10", but he's electric. He is explosive, quick twitch. 12 touchdowns in 12 games last year for Boston College. He had over 70 receptions, over 1,000 yards receiving. And there's some guys who you just kind of throw those traditional requirements, prototype receiver requirements you have out the window for, and he's just one of those dudes. Like I wrote for my blurb for him, like he's just a baller. So he can win all over the field. Like that is how you would describe Steve Smith.
Yeah, it is exactly. It's every route, and he runs it like it's his last. So
exactly.
I'm excited about Zay. So I just hope he's good.
And I just think, me too. I hope the Giants go receiver here. You know?
God. They need some.
You need a receiver, man. Like, come on, let's go. Don't turn in New England. Like, get a receiver. The Cowboys, I hate how much I like this pick for them just because I'm not a Cowboys guy, of course. But Michael Mayer falling here. A lot of people have been overthinking him as a prospect. Like, we talked about him a little bit earlier. I think he's rock solid. He can play in line. You can kick him out. He can block. He can just do everything. He's a red zone monster. And he'd fit in really nicely, not only filling a vacancy they have at that position, but just adding another relief valve, another security blanket, whatever cliche you want to use for Dak Prescott. And the blocking is a nice addition as well. So I think this is great value to get him.
It's amazing value and perfect with Schultz falling out of there. So I really like it.
Drew Sanders, this is the only inside linebacker I have going in the first round. I mean, the Bills losing Edmonds, obviously that's a big need for them. And I think the Bills value that quite a bit. And I think they couldn't afford to try and pay him, probably because they knew they could grab one if they're willing to do it in the first round. Here they get the best one in the draft. I think that's pretty clear. Jack Campbell from Iowa is real nice, and the Clemson kid's nice too. But Drew Sanders is definitely the most polished. He's athletic. He's got it all. Like, he's going to be good, very good.
Yeah.
And that's one of those positions you can come in and start and play every snap as a rookie and be very effective, right?
Is this another one of the like undersized? Like, is that the knock on him? He's a little undersized.
No, Drew Sanders. He meets all.
Is he
the
one of the bigger
criteria.
ones? Okay.
Yeah. He fits. You check.
I was looking at a bunch of the linebacker rankings or whatever, and they're just like the common theme that I saw was like, oh, this guy's a little undersized. It's a little undersized, and like it seems like there's a lot of undersized linebackers in there. But if this is the big one, then yeah, go for it. Like, why not fill that hole?
Yeah, he's 6'5", and I forget what he weighs, but he's 6'5", so he's got great height. Okay, and then Luke Musgrave. This is a bit of a I don't think many people have him in the first round. But speaking of height and speed, like, he's that guy, and I think the Bengals are going to need a tight end as much as any team in football. I think it would add another dimension. We saw what they did just having Hurst there. right? Who's a
Yeah.
little more vanilla, even though you and I both like crush on him for some reason. But
I'll take that.
yeah, but I think Musgrave is like a higher ceiling tight end. Like he could be really prolific, and he's an Oregon State Beaver, Bodan. Like you gotta like that.
That's my guy. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Finishing her up here, just trying to close her out. We got the Saints taking Brian Brzee, big defensive tackle from Clemson. He was a big prospect. You knew his name a lot throughout the collegiate season, and then as the draft got closer, he kind of started to slip down. I actually had him out. I initially had Mazzie Smith from Michigan here, but I swapped them out because I think Brzee might just. That seems to be the biggest need for them, though. They need help on the D line after losing some guys, and yeah. So don't hate this one just because I'm not like obsessed with Brian Brzee, and like I had the Saints taking Olave last year. I don't, if you recall, and I hated it because
it was such a good pick
because I loved Olave. So I don't feel that way about Brian Brzee. So I'd be cool with that. Now I already talked about the Eagles. Here's their second of their 2 first-round picks. They would love to address the trenches. I again think they'll try to move up to get Jalen Carter. I really do, but here this couldn't be better suited to them if they're not going to be able to do that. Why reach on a D lineman if you can get the best nickel corner in the draft to replace Chauncey Gardner-Johnson? It's the one area of the back end of their defense they weren't able to carry over from that Super Bowl appearance. We already talked about Brian Branch a bit. He's ready to play right away. It's a super nice fit, great value. Love that. Quentin Johnson, I think the Chiefs need a guy who can go up and get it, right? Like I think that would be a nice way to add a new dimension. I know they got Kelsey, but if you have a guy on the outside who can just go up and get it, I mean, Quentin Johnson's got he's got Mike Williams-ishness to me.
Yeah,
like he's kind of like that type of receiver. There's a lot of like he could easily slip out of the first round, but there's also rumors he's been in working out with those guys and like just
really?
There's pictures of him throwing with Mahomes and shit. And so again, this is one of those where I'm more going off trusting some of the noise that I'm hearing from some of the guys who are plugged in.
One of the things that I watched a little bit of tape on Quentin Johnson. I'm always addicted to the wide receiver tape. The hands concern me a little bit. I feel like he traps a lot of balls. It's a lot of body catches, and it's just like I don't know. I'm just not a fan of that. And then this is a perfect one to end on because I'm sad that my guy Jordan Addison isn't in there because I feel like he's got the hands that I like, and he's got almost like that Jahan Dotson vibe of I can catch anything anywhere at any time.
Yo, man, that's totally fair. That is Jordan Addison. I just don't know if I see the fit there because they got Kadarius Toney and they got Sky Moore, who are just both undersized dudes with wiggle. You know what I'm saying? So
it's more like I wanted Jordan Addison. I wanted a reason to talk about Jordan Addison in the first round. So in mock 2.0, throw me a bone. Throw me a little bit.
Yo, man, might happen. I'm beat up that I couldn't include Will McDonald. Another guy who could be in play for the Bucs at 19, Iowa State's edge rusher. He is dynamite. We got a Bengals fan in the building, Brian Wood. Woody says, boom for GM for the Bengals. Love the pick. I like that. Woody knows his shit, so I'll take his approval. Anyway, on that note, there we go, man. 1 through 31. That is my first mock draft. It'll be coming out in article form on BucsGameDay.com. The only Sports Illustrated website dedicated specifically to covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I am Collin. This is Bodan. Shout out to Scott for being on earlier. Make sure you follow all of us on Twitter and make sure you subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Like and turn those notifications on. Can't wait. It's draft season. We will be back in a week's time, just a night before the draft, I assume, unless scheduling interferes with that. But I think you'll hear from us at least once more before the NFL draft kicks off next Thursday. I can't wait. I live for this. So on that note, thanks for joining, folks. Be well. Go Bucs. Till next time.